Welcome to The Process with me, your host, Adam Summer. Greetings, and welcome in, listeners. Greetings to the old Heartland Pod listeners. This is Adam Summer. If you've never listened to the Heartland Pod, I'm going to talk a little bit about the transition here to start this first episode as a little bit of an intro, and then move on from there to the rest of the episode. So this is an update for the channel. If you are a Heartland Pod listener, if you didn't know about the change, this is what the change is. If you are still listening and you didn't know, I would be shocked because we talked about it a lot in our last episode with Sean and Rachel. So this was a channel known as the Heartland Pod that has sunset. It is now The Process with me, Adam Summer, your host. The change comes for plenty of reason, but mainly the projects, sometimes when you create something, it's got a life cycle, right? And that was the case for the Heartland Pod and the kind of shows we were trying to create. Life changes, people's schedules and needs change, and just the landscape itself changes. When we started the shows in 2020, it was Sean and I at first. We were focused on finding interesting people in the Heartland to talk to and to focus conversation on the Heartland itself. And we added, we had co-hosts, the people came and went. We added shows came and went. We helped launch the show, The Dirt Road Democrat. That podcast produced a year of shows of that show once a week, basically, and sometimes more. There were a ton of shows, right? We were joined in 2021 by Rachel and Parker, and as a trio, Rachel and myself and Sean, we put out a massive number of shows in just under 4 years of content. We talked with hundreds of guests, and, I hope that we contributed somewhat positively to creating connective tissue for folks in the Heartland. I'm positive of that in Missouri. I know people that we are still connected to, and that's, part of why this new version of the show exists, of The Process. So, naturally, when you create something, especially something that lives and produces so much for so long, some folks are going to form their own opinions about what we are or what we're supposed to be or how we're supposed to do it. And as always, I am reminded of, kind of the man of the arena speech, and those who create are always going to be subject to opinions at all time, right? It's just part of it. Some lose sight of reality, that we're people trying to do something that we think is interesting, that we think might be worthwhile. Others seem just, they want content that just reaffirms their own bias or belief, and that's just not something that I'm programmed to provide. So sometimes, that can ruffle people the wrong way. But the shift is really born out of a desire I've always had, which is to provide not just context and information, which was kind of our goal with the Heartland Pod, was, contextualizing and providing, just a way to understand what was out there, because there's such a huge media diet out there that you can choose from, and it's hard to whittle that down sometimes. And so that kind of became our focus. But this is more about understanding with some education involved with it. And that's why I'm continuing forward. It's why I'm choosing to do that, not just with the show, but a new format. And it's a new goal, which is to help provide more education and context on law, politics, and society from the perspective of my lens as an attorney, right? As a practicing trial attorney, as a father in mid-America, as somebody who has spent a lot of time in and around politics, studied politics in my undergrad work, and has continued to study that, independently, and, just really talk through things with that combination of historical, modern, and really legal application and sort of social application, view on it. I've always been clear in my own political perspective as a progressive person, and that came crystallized for me years back reading some philosophy about pragmatism. And I'd actually read a book that I didn't realize it was about pragmatism. It was just a book that was recommended to me. And as I was reading the book, I went, God, I could have written this book. It just sounds like things that I say. And it's because I had said something, and one of my law partners said, that sounds like from this book. And I went, I don't even know what you're talking about, right? And so that's where that came from. But that perspective, pragmatic progressive, it doesn't always fit super neat into a box of partisan viewpoints, because my stance is inherently solutions-based, which requires being open to all perspectives, at least to allow them to be put on the table. It doesn't mean that you give them all the same level of validity, but it means you at the very least let them be viewed. And it's not always easy to listen to somebody that we disagree with, but I find it absolutely necessary to understand the full picture and to find solutions that are the overall best solution for a scenario. I don't think it's possible. It's possible. It's much, much harder to find the best solution, to find the best way forward if you don't check all of the angles. Very, very few things are truly black and white in this world, and people are always way more complicated than we want to admit. Demonization, it's easier than understanding. Disagreement, easier than listening. Degrading and insulting, way more satisfying than patience and curiosity. But I am convinced that the only path forward for us, not just folks in Missouri where I'm from or the Heartland in my region, but the country writ large, is practicing our listening and patience, being more curious than judgmental, and seeking to understand before we demonize. And yeah, I ripped off Ted Lasso for that, more curious than judgmental. It's a good line. Doesn't mean giving a free pass. Okay, I'm not talking about a free pass to bad actors. Doesn't mean saying both sides have a point just for the sake of creating a false balance. There are always instances where there is a better answer or better outcome, and I'm never going to compromise on fundamental human rights and dignity. But I have never been and will continue not to be an agent or tool of one line of thinking or ideology. I fundamentally reject the idea that a political party holds all the right answers at all times. Still, I have my North Stars. And in the end, I will always come back to the simplest rule. Do unto others as you would have done unto you. I hope you will join me and that together we can broaden our understanding and widen the lens. I look forward to continuing the conversation. And now here is truly episode 1 of The Process, Resisting. Welcome into The Process. This is episode 1. I am Adam Sommer. I am your host, and I want to start where things are right now at this moment. Before I get to that, if you would like to support me in making these shows, help me defray the cost of web hosting and equipment and just everything that goes into it and the time that's spent on it, you can do that over at Patreon. You can find patreon.com/The Process, or you can search The Process over on Patreon and you can sign up there. It's $5 a month, and that's the main level. There are other levels that you can look at as well. There's not a ton of extras. I will do some posting over there and some writing over there. I will message folks over there. I will, there'll probably be a couple of extra episodes here and there, but basically it's just to say, hey, thanks for making this and for the work and to help me with the cost of it. Frankly, that's what it's for. That's what makes this something that is a project that I can undertake. So that's how you can support the show at patreon.com, Patreon/The Process. So it's January 2025. We've turned the calendar year, and back in November, Donald Trump was elected to a second term. That happened. It's a real thing. Inauguration is just around the corner. I've talked with lots of folks since the election. Some voted for Trump. Many did not. Some are optimistic. Some are sad. Some are concerned. And some, maybe you, are frightened. My goal on The Process is to break through those kinds of reactions completely. Because those reactions are, simply put, feelings. They're not reality. They're not facts. They are subjective interpretations. But it doesn't make those feelings invalid just because they are subjective. If you or a loved one are a member of a group that's been verbally threatened by Trump or his team of billionaires, well, mostly there's a couple of mere multimillionaires in that group too, but it's completely understandable to have those feelings. We also have to make sure we take stock of reality. Never allow that which is not real to interfere with the ability to function. I recently had a conversation with someone who was talking about their need to assist with the resistance, and that's what I want to talk about for a little bit. Right away after the election, one of the narratives that started creeping out of, I'm going to call it the Substack left, which is a group I'll reference more. It doesn't mean everybody that writes on Substack, but you know what I'm talking about. If you do, you do. If you don't, there's just a lot of people writing a lot of stuff on Substack, and there's just a lot of noise over there. But the narrative that I saw creeping out was, don't comply, right? Don't obey in advance. Don't pre-comply. and build this resistance. And that was very popular in the first Trump administration, right? The resistance was a big thing. And I get the sentiment, but it also means that you have to then rebel against something that also hasn't actually happened. It requires guessing and living in a constant state of panic and concern. And folks, it's just not a healthy place to live. You're going to burn out. You're going to lose your edge. What that attitude brings, the I must resist mentality all the time, is that you strike out at everything and anything with the inability to discern between what is and isn't real. Hyperbole and ginned-up outrage do not create results, period. It will drive off reasonable folks. It will make people stop listening to you. The person I was talking with said they had to get out of the country to help with the resistance. First, that's stupid. Leaving the country is not going to make you more effective. The discussion included talk about a sort of underground railroad situation, which is also lunacy. Please do not use language to compare the Trump administration to the institution of slavery, of ownership of people for generations on generations as chattel to be bought and sold and traded. It is an abhorrent comparison in any form. Second, what is resistance going to mean? Does it mean people will put themselves in the way of actual harm? It's going to be hard to do outside of the country. Will they practice civil disobedience to the point of being arrested? Does it mean violence? The reality is that, like it or not, the best tool in the American system remains the same as it has been since we began the experiment: money, time, and legal work. We all learn about the Boston Tea Party. What we learn is often limited to the idea that some rowdy colonists dumped some tea into the ocean in protest of taxes. It's an oversimplified version of the story. It also rarely gives much time to the bigger story, frankly, at the moment, which was the Boston Massacre, which colonists attacked British soldiers and the soldiers fired and killed citizens. Both stories are part of the context surrounding the Declaration of Independence, right? This lauded, vaunted document. It's not law. It has no actual legal effect on our country, but it is truly a foundation document. It is a seminal moment, not just in American history, in world history. Right now, folks on the left don't sound like the colonists. What they sound like a lot is the way folks on the right sounded under Obama and some of those folks under Biden. This faux talk of civil war and revolution. And I've had the same reaction to both, which is to notice that it rarely deals with the realities like the Declaration of Independence did, and just how horrible that government repression had become. More importantly, the word tax, the main word we end up focused on in that declaration, it only appears one time, just once. The real crimes were about representation and the power of the executive being used unfairly. So when you or someone you know starts down the resistance path, what I have to wonder is what the hell that even means and why. Are you resisting the outcome of the election? If so, then certainly leaving the country where you may not be able to vote won't do much. Are you resisting the installation of Trump as the next president? If so, how? Are you going to go to the Capitol in March? How is that going to be different than what MAGA did on January 6th? During this conversation about resisting, this person cited to, quote, all of the post-apocalyptic novels and how they begin. My reply was simple, but I think important to remember. Those are works of fiction. This person then pivoted to The Handmaid's Tale, which does contain references to real events that are cobbled together and brought together and grafted together to then create a work of fiction. Don't live in fiction. Don't create false realities of fear for yourself that suck your energy and leave you sitting on the couch in a white-knuckle panic. You want to fight back? You want to be part of a solution? Get off social media and engage with reality. Trade Twitter for school board meetings. Trade Facebook for your local government, both county and city. Trade TikTok for the library board. There are dozens of ways to get involved in your local community, and you can do it tomorrow. You don't need to leave the country. You just need to leave the house. That's episode 1 of The Process. Thanks for joining me. I hope you'll be back. I'm going to try to put these out once a week, probably mostly on Mondays, and I'll continue going forward with those and hopefully have some guests here pretty soon. And I hope that you have a great week, and I hope that this helps in some way. And if it does, share it with a friend, and if you feel so led to go to Patreon/The Process and throw me a couple of bucks in support, I really appreciate it. Really appreciate all of you for listening, and we'll see you on the other side. And in the meantime, be well. The Process is made possible by listener support through Patreon. Go to patreon.com/The Process or search The Process on Patreon. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for those of you who support me through Patreon to help me make this content and continue making it as long as possible. Enjoy American Aquarium, the world on fire. TV, trying to find some meaning, hoping that we'd wake up from this dream sometime tomorrow. Well, the night came and went, not a damn thing had changed. That's when I saw a tear fall from her eyes. She said, what are we gonna do? What's this world coming to? And for the first time in my whole life, I stood there speechless. Become the home of the afraid, afraid of the world, afraid of the truth, afraid of each other. This ain't the country my grandfather fought for, but I still see the hate he fought against. Give rest to the tired, give mercy to the poor, give warmth to the huddled masses, and I'll show you freedom. The load is heavy and the road is long, and we've only begun to fight. We just can't give in. Can't give up. We must go boldly into the darkness and be the light. I got a baby girl coming in the spring. I worry about the world she's coming into, but she'll have my fight. She'll have her mama's fire. If anyone builds a wall in her journey, baby, bust right through. The load is heavy.
be the light.